The problem is, under a defined contribution or benefit plan, the entire risk lies with the employer. And that's not really fair. By the same token, by switching it all to the employee in a defined contribution, that's not fair either. I mean, the employee is the least well-equipped person to handle their investments. I think the answer, and we've been saying this, lies somewhere in the middle, a hybrid. A plan which has some guarantee that the risk is shared between the employer and employee, and that there is some guarantee. I point to a recent settlement done by Air Canada with its flight attendants, and instead of the standard, 2% times the number of years times your last salary, it's basically 1% times the number of years times your salary, and then on top of that, you can layer on a DC. So if markets are good, you'll actually do better.
Yep.
And if markets aren't so good, at least you have a floor.
Okay.
The teacher's plan, we've been amending it, for those of you who know, and we've introduced conditional inflation protection. So instead of guaranteeing the inflation protection, we're saying it's conditional on there being enough money in the plan to fund it. So that's a hybrid. It's part DB, part DC. I think that's the way we have to move. But the conventional wisdom's wrong.
Yeah.
And
did I mean that's fascinating. I mean that I did not. I knew a couple of pieces of that. I didn't know the whole picture. Did the momentum switch towards this sort of conventional wisdom in part because defined benefit plans were making blank check type promises? They were saying it doesn't matter what inflation did, all of that. Was that maybe the mistake that like corporate defined benefit plans made?
There is no doubt that many of the promises in defined benefit plans, promises that were made back in the 60s and 70s, are too rich in today's world. And it's funny, when we sit down and talk with the teachers and the government about this plan, everybody's always trying to find, who's to blame?
Right.
Like, whose fault is it? Well, Barbara Svan and I looked at the 1970 actuarial assumptions. And you know what? The actuaries were dead on with the amount of return.
Yes.
They were dead on with how long people were going to work. They were out by 50% on how long they were going to live.
Oh, okay.
They assumed they were going to live for 20 years, and they're living for longer than 30. So you take one assumption like that. So who do you blame? You don't blame the actuaries. They were going on history up till then. You blame medical science, and you blame teachers for living a healthy lifestyle, stopping to smoke, and eating well.
Oh, those nasty teachers. How can they do that? No.
And they never die. Roger, we have 2,600 retirees over the age of 90 and 102 over the age of 100.
Really? Oh, that's amazing.
They never die.
Well, it's because they're happy for providing such a good public service during their life. I have a soft spot for teachers. My mother was an elementary school teacher. So the feds have tried to weigh in on this, and last year, I think it was in November or December, they came out with this Pooled Registered Pension Plan Act. And my sense is that based on this, the situation you described, it was to try and give individuals, more of the kind of benefits that you're talking about a big defined benefit plan providing. Was that the sort of the intent? And did they do a good job, a bad job, a medium job?
Yeah, what they were trying to address is the 60% of working Canadians who have no work-based, employment-based pension plan.
Okay.
Which is a lot of people. And a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. I was talking to an owner of a SME today who's got 60 employees, etc., and they have no pension plan, and they're looking at this. And that's who it was really aimed at. Now, the good things about it are that, A, they're offering it, and it's going to be an opportunity that people can start to save. The other good thing about it is they're talking about it being portable. So, which is a big issue around pension plans, is portability.
Yeah.
When you leave your one employer and go to another one, you start all over, sort of thing. I think the areas that we're concerned about is it's still basically a defined contribution plan. It's not a defined benefit.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem one. Problem two is that, this is still up in the air, but as drafted, it's not obligatory. So that, one of our issues is convincing people that they have to save. If you look at David Dodge's report, he said if you want 60% replacement of your income, you basically have to save somewhere between 15 and 20% of your income for 30 years, and then you can look forward to 60% replacement. Well, 15 to 20% of your income is a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many people in downtown Toronto, young kids starting out in work, can afford to do that. So it's really easy to just put it off, and bingo, you wake up, you're 50 years old, and you only have 10 more years or 15 more years to save.
And then it's a hell of a lot higher than 15 to 20%.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's the obligatory, non-obligatory side of it. And the third one is cost. There's got to be some way we can bring costs down to savers. And with all due respect to the bankers and the insurance guys in the room, paying retail fees on these types of savings, really digs into the amount that you can save. So there's some good news and bad news.
Protect them from that at all.
Yeah, kind of what we hope is that the provinces will now come in with a layer of rules.
Yes.
I think the feds, they've never really, frankly, been interested in this file, and I think they've sort of, done, and they think they can now carry on. They've solved the problem. I think it's going to be up to the provinces.
And if it's just over in Ontario, what would be, if the province of Ontario could do one thing to pile on top of this in a positive way, what would the one thing be, do you think?
I think they've got to address obligatory, or at least a negative option.
Okay.
Where you have to opt out.
Yes.
That would be it.